Hello, everyone. Welcome back to SpeakEasy FM.
Hi, we're really happy you're here today.
I'm Stacy.
And I'm Ian, and on this channel, we help you practice real, everyday English.
The English people actually use, not the stiff textbook version.
If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe and give this one a like. It really helps us out.
It really does. Thank you. Okay, Ian, I heard you've been reading a big history book lately.
I have 600 pages. I'm on page 40.
40? How long have you had it?
3 months.
That's not reading a book. That's owning a book.
It's a slow relationship. We're taking our time.
Well, good news, because today we're actually going to speed things up for you.
Oh no, what are we doing?
Today's topic is the history of the United States. The whole story, start to now, in one episode.
The whole story? That's a lot of history for one video.
It is, so we're going to keep it simple. Big moments, easy sentences, and a little bit of fun along the way.
I like that plan much better than 600 pages.
Quick tip before we start. If the pace feels fast, tap the settings icon on YouTube, choose playback speed, and pick whatever feels comfortable for you.
Okay, ready when you are.
Let's go all the way back to the beginning. So, long before anyone called this place America, people already lived here. Native American nations were here for thousands of years.
Thousands of years. Not a small detail.
Not at all. Hundreds of different nations, different languages, different ways of life, spread across the whole continent.
So this wasn't an empty land waiting for someone to find it.
Exactly. It was already full of history before anyone from Europe ever arrived.
Okay, so then what happened? Europeans show up eventually, right?
Right. In 1492, an explorer named Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean from Spain and landed in the Caribbean, not actually the mainland USA.
A common mix-up. People think he landed in America and just didn't.
Exactly. But his voyage opened the door for a lot more European ships to follow.
And then the colonies started?
A little after that, yes. Different European countries, Spain, France, England, all started sending settlers to different parts of what's now the US.
So multiple countries were kind of racing to claim land.
Pretty much. And this contact between Europeans and native peoples brought huge changes, some through trade and a lot through disease and conflict, which had a devastating impact on native communities.
That's an important, heavy part of the story.
It really is, and it's important not to skip past it.
Okay, so let's get to the colonies. What were the 13 colonies exactly?
Starting in the early 1600s, England set up settlements along the East Coast. Over time, there were 13 of them, from Massachusetts down to Georgia.
Why 13? Was that just how the map worked out?
Basically, yes. Different groups settled different areas for different reasons. Some for religious freedom, some for trade, some just for a fresh start and land of their own.
Was life easy for the early settlers?
Not even a little. The first years were brutal. Cold winters, disease, food shortages. A lot of early colonies nearly failed completely.
I always picture colonial life as very calm. People in funny hats churning butter.
There were funny hats, sure, but also a lot of hunger and hardship, especially at the start.
Okay, humbling. What changed over time?
The colonies grew. Towns became cities, farming expanded, and trade with England made some colonists quite wealthy.
So things got better, but England was still in charge the whole time.
Right, and that's exactly where the tension starts. By the 1760s, the colonies were growing fast, but they had no real voice in how England governed them.
Meaning what exactly?
England kept adding taxes on things like tea, paper, and other everyday goods. But colonists had no representatives making decisions in the English government.
Taxes without a say. I can see why that would upset people.
The phrase people still remember from that time is no taxation without representation.
Catchy. Also, very fair, honestly.
Tensions kept building. There was the Boston Tea Party in 1773, where colonists dumped an entire shipment of English tea into the harbor as a protest.
Wait, they just threw the tea into the water?
All of it. Crates and crates straight into Boston Harbor.
As someone who loves his morning coffee, I felt that in my soul.
England was furious, and things escalated quickly from there.
So this leads to war.
It does. In 1775, fighting broke out between colonial militias and British soldiers, and the American Revolutionary War officially began.
And then in 1776, the big moment, right?
Exactly. On July 4th, 1776, the colonies signed the Declaration of Independence, officially announcing they were breaking away from England.
That's why July 4th is such a huge holiday in the US now.
Fireworks, barbecues, the whole thing, every single year, celebrating that one declaration.
Did the war end quickly after that?
Not at all. It lasted for years. But, with help from allies like France, the colonies eventually won, and by 1783, independence was official.
So, a brand new country, starting from scratch.
Pretty much. And figuring out how to actually run that new country was its own huge challenge.
Okay, so they won independence. Then what? You can't just declare freedom and have everything work perfectly.
Exactly right. The new country needed rules. So leaders got together and wrote the Constitution in 1787.
The Constitution being the big rule book for the whole country.
Basically, yes. It set up the government structure, a president, a Congress, courts, and a system of checks and balances, so no single part gets too much power.
Checks and balances. Like everyone watching everyone else.
Exactly like that. And George Washington became the first president in 1789.
The guy on the dollar bill.
The very same. He only served 2 terms and then stepped down, which actually set an important example for future presidents.
Did the Constitution cover everything perfectly from day one?
Not even close. Huge groups of people, including enslaved people, Native Americans, and women, had no real rights or voice in this new, free country.
So, freedom for some, but not for everyone, right from the start.
Exactly. And that gap between the ideal and the reality shapes a lot of what comes next in American history. Through the 1800s, the country kept growing, and growing fast, spreading further and further west.
How did it grow that quickly?
A few big ways. In 1803, the U.S. bought a massive piece of land from France called the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the country in one deal.
One purchase doubled the whole country?
Basically overnight, on paper at least. Then, over the following decades, settlers kept moving west, looking for land and opportunity.
I'm guessing this wasn't an empty journey into open land either.
You're guessing correctly. This expansion pushed directly into land where native nations already lived, and it led to broken treaties, forced removals, and a huge amount of suffering for native communities.
So growth for the new settlers often meant loss for someone else.
Exactly. That pattern repeats again and again during this period, and it's one of the more painful parts of the story.
Was there a famous event connected to gold or something? I feel like I've heard that.
The California Gold Rush, starting in 1848. Word spread that gold was found in California, and thousands of people rushed west, hoping to strike it rich.
Did most people actually get rich?
Very few, honestly. Most worked incredibly hard for very little. But the rush brought huge numbers of new people and new towns into the western part of the country.
So expansion changed the map, but it definitely wasn't a simple, happy story.
Not at all. Growth and hardship happened side by side.
Okay, let's talk about the Civil War, because I feel like that's a huge chapter.
One of the biggest. By the mid-1800s, the country was deeply divided over slavery. Southern states relied on enslaved labor for their economy, and this was a brutal, dehumanizing system.
And the North was different?
Increasingly, yes. Many northern states had ended slavery, and a growing movement was pushing to end it everywhere.
So this disagreement eventually breaks the country apart.
It does. In 1861, southern states separated from the rest of the country, forming their own government, and war broke out between the North and the South.
How long did that war last?
4 brutal years, and it remains the deadliest war in American history, with an enormous loss of life on both sides.
That's heavy.
It really is. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in southern states to be free.
Did that end slavery right away?
Not immediately everywhere, but it was a major turning point. Slavery was formally abolished nationwide in 1865 through a constitutional amendment, right as the war ended.
So the country survives, but at a massive cost.
A massive cost. And the reunited countries still had a long, difficult road ahead to actually live up to the idea of equality. After the war, the country entered a period of huge industrial growth. Factories, railroads, cities expanding incredibly fast.
This is around when a lot of immigration happened too, right?
Exactly. Millions of people arrived from Europe and beyond, looking for work and a new life. And cities like New York grew enormously because of it.
I always think about Ellis Island when I hear this part.
Good connection. Ellis Island in New York was the entry point for millions of immigrants, the first stop on their new life in America.
Was it an easy transition for these new arrivals?
Rarely. A lot of immigrants faced discrimination, difficult working conditions, and crowded city life. But their labor also built much of the country's growing industry.
So the country's growth was really built by a huge mix of people.
An enormous mix. And that mix is honestly still one of the most defining features of the country today.
What else happens in this stretch of time?
The country also becomes more industrial and more connected. Railroads crossed the entire continent, and new inventions changed everyday life quickly.
Life must have felt like it was speeding up.
It really did. Decade by decade, things looked less and less like the old colonial world.
Okay, let's jump into the 1900s because a lot happens here too.
A lot indeed. The U.S. entered World War I in 1917, and then, after some tough economic years, faced the Great Depression starting in 1929.
The Great Depression, that's the one where everyone lost their jobs and money, right?
Exactly. A massive economic collapse. Millions lost jobs, savings, and homes, and it lasted through most of the 1930s.
How did the country recover?
Slowly, through government programs, and eventually through the economic push of World War II, which the U.S. entered in 1941 after the attack on Pearl Harbor.
I've heard of Pearl Harbor. That's the big turning point that pulled the U.S. fully into the war.
Exactly right. The war ended in 1945, and afterward, the U.S. entered a period of huge growth and became a major global power.
What happens after the war?
A really important chapter, the Civil Rights Movement. Even though slavery had ended decades earlier, Black Americans still faced deep legal discrimination and segregation.
So equality on paper wasn't the same as equality in real life.
Exactly the gap we mentioned earlier, still very much alive a century later. Through the 1950s and 60s, leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. led a massive movement for equal rights.
Wasn't there a huge speech connected to this?
Yes, his "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963, one of the most famous speeches in American history, calling for racial equality and justice.
Did things change quickly after that?
Important laws did pass, like the Civil Rights Act in 1964, ending legal segregation. But real, full equality has been, and still is, an ongoing struggle.
So this isn't just old history, it connects straight into today.
Exactly. That's why understanding this part matters so much. Since then, the country has kept changing fast. New technology, changing culture, and a growing, increasingly diverse population.
I feel like the pace of change has only sped up since then.
Massively. Think about everything just from the internet alone. Communication, business, entertainment, all completely transformed in a few decades.
It's wild to think this all started with wooden ships crossing an ocean.
It really is. A journey from tiny colonies to a massive, complicated, constantly changing country.
And still changing today.
Every single day, honestly. History doesn't really stop. It's just still being written.
That's actually a nice way to end that part.
I have my moments. Before we get to vocabulary, let's do a few quick, fun facts, just to end the history part on a lighter note.
Oh, I love this idea. Hit me.
Okay, fact 1. The Statue of Liberty wasn't originally American at all. It was a gift from France, given in 1886.
Wait, the giant green lady in the harbor was a gift?
A gift, celebrating friendship between the two countries after the Revolution.
That's actually really sweet, honestly. Okay, my turn. Did you know the White House was originally kind of gray? It only got painted white after it was rebuilt and repainted following a fire in 1814.
Wait, someone actually set the White House on fire?
British troops did during a war in 1812. They burned it down and it had to be completely rebuilt.
That's wild. Okay, one more from me. Alaska used to belong to Russia until the US bought it in 1867 for about 2 cents an acre.
2 cents an acre? That's an unbelievable deal now.
At the time, people actually mocked the purchase and called it a total waste of money.
History really loves proving people wrong, eventually.
It really does. Okay, your turn again.
Here's mine. Hawaii wasn't even a U.S. state until 1959, making it, along with Alaska, one of the 2 newest states, and by far the furthest from the mainland.
I always forget that Hawaii joined that late. It feels like it's always been part of the country.
Same. History is full of little surprises like that, hiding right behind the big famous stories.
A perfect note to head into vocabulary on. Okay, that was a lot of history. Let's slow down and review some useful words from today.
Great idea. First word, colony. A colony is a settlement or territory controlled by another, usually distant, country.
The 13 colonies were controlled by England before independence. Simple and clear.
Next, independence. Independence means freedom from control by another country or group.
The colonies declared independence from England in 1776. A word you'll hear constantly in history talk.
Next, revolution. A revolution is a major, often sudden change, especially the overthrow of a government or system.
The American Revolution led to a brand new country. Big, dramatic word for a big, dramatic moment.
Next, constitution. A constitution is the written set of basic laws and principles that a country's government has to follow.
The Constitution created the structure of the U.S. government. Every country talks about its constitution in one way or another.
Next, expansion. Expansion means growing larger, spreading over more space or territory.
Westward expansion doubled the size of the country over time. Very useful for talking about growth of any kind.
Next, segregation. Segregation means the forced separation of groups of people, often by race, in daily life.
Segregation kept Black and white Americans separated by law for decades. A heavy but important word to understand.
Next, movement, in the historical sense. A movement is a large group of people working together toward a shared social or political goal.
The Civil Rights Movement fought for equal rights for all Americans. You'll see this word in almost any history conversation.
Next, immigrant. An immigrant is someone who moves from one country to live permanently in another.
Millions of immigrants arrived through Ellis Island. A word that's still hugely relevant today, everywhere in the world.
And our last word, legacy. A legacy is something lasting that's left behind from the past, still affecting things today.
The legacy of the civil rights movement still shapes American life today. A great word for wrapping up big historical ideas.
So, to review, colony, independence, revolution, constitution, expansion, segregation, movement, immigrant, and legacy.
9 solid words. Try using at least 1 or 2 of them this week.
All right, let's wrap up this giant history lesson.
We started before the country even existed, with native nations who were already here for thousands of years.
We talked about European arrival and the start of the 13 colonies, and honestly, how rough early colonial life really was.
We covered the road to independence, taxes, tea in the harbor, and the Declaration of Independence in 1776.
We talked about building a brand new government with the Constitution and George Washington as the first president.
We covered westward expansion, huge growth for some, huge loss for native nations who were already living on that land.
We talked about the Civil War, slavery, and the long, difficult road toward freedom and equality.
We covered the wave of immigration and industry that reshaped cities and the whole economy.
We talked about the 20th century, 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and the Civil Rights Movement.
And we ended with modern times and how the country, and honestly the whole world, keeps changing faster every year.
That is genuinely a lot of history for one video.
It is, but hopefully it felt like a story, not a textbook.
Way more fun than my 600-page book, that's for sure.
Maybe finish that book with a little more motivation now.
No promises.
Okay, it's time for our favorite part.
Question of the day! And we actually have 2 today.
First question, what part of today's history surprised you the most?
And second question, does your own country have a similar moment, like a revolution or a big movement for change?
Write it in the comments. Just a sentence or 2 is perfect. For example, I didn't know the colonies threw all that tea in the water.
Or, my country also had a big revolution in, and then tell us when.
Any answer is a great answer. We genuinely love learning about history from all around the world through you.
Especially since, apparently, some of you have finished way more history books than I have.
A low bar, but sure.
We read every single comment.
Everyone. And we love learning right alongside you.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
This was such a fun, big topic to cover. History really does feel like one long, connected story.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who loves a good story.
And subscribe to SpeakEasy FM so you don't miss our next episode. New videos every week.
Remember, learning a language is a lot like learning history. Small steps, one day at a time, and suddenly you've come a long way.
Beautifully said.
I have my moments too, apparently.
From both of us.
Keep learning, keep practicing.
And have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.